Sometimes we need to take a step back and we need to ask ourselves questions about ultimately what is the point of what we're trying to accomplish in our lives. Why are we doing what we're doing? So I want to raise the question, what is the point of having a synagogue? What is the point of what it is that we are doing here day in and day out? And believe me, it requires a lot of effort to sustain a synagogue. So I'm going to enter into this conversation in a way that might seem a little bit unusual to you. I want to just talk for a moment about a Super Bowl ad that got a tremendous amount of attention. And it was actually put out by a Christian organization. And it featured a number of scenes where one person was washing the feet of another person. And the person whose feet was being washed usually was in some way you could interpret doing something or representing something that Christian tradition, according to some interpretation, would not support. So instead of condemning these people, they actually had their feet washed. And the very last line was, Jesus didn't teach hate, he washed feet. Now, interestingly, the ad got a lot of criticism, most of it from Christian groups who didn't think that it should have been done this way or shouldn't have been done that way. But what the ad suggested, which I want us to think about, is that really there are two main ways that religions operate in the world. One is to judge and to hold accountable, and that's the piece that was being argued against. And then the other is to embrace and to acknowledge and to lift up. So the accountability part is very important. Our Torah contains a great deal of laws, of expectations, and indeed the community would hold each other accountable to act in ways that were in keeping with their understanding of what God wanted. But that wasn't all that was expected. And actually, in this morning's Torah portion, we take a turn from the laws and the accountability to the other dimension, which I want to explore. So first of all, the children of Israel are told to donate in order to build this Mishkan, this sanctuary. And the Torah says, Me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo. So each person would give according to the dictates of their own heart. So they're actually being told, do something, give something. Now, the details are so interesting. So there were these two kind of creatures that were depicted in carved gold, and they were known as cheruvim, as cherubs. And the Torah says that they were supposed to be part of the ark, and they were supposed to be facing in a certain direction. V'hayu hakrovim porsech nafayim lemala. So their wings were supposed to be spread out above. Ufnehem ish el achiv. And their faces were turned towards each other. Really interesting. The wings are up, and they're supposed to be looking towards each other. Later on, in the description of the Holy Temple that was permanent, it said that they weren't looking towards each other. And the commentators said, you know what? That was not good. It was not good when they stopped looking at each other, then God's presence wasn't felt. So what's essential? Number one, that people contribute. And number two, that we're actually looking at each other, that we are actually looking to see, oh my goodness, there's a human being sitting next to me, sitting behind me. What's going on with this person? Does this person need a welcome? Does this person need some comfort? Is this person celebrating something? I can wish that person mazel tov. All of this can happen when we are actually looking towards each other. Now, our synagogue has been participating in a program called the Belonging Project. And the idea is that we want to find out from everyone within our community, do you feel like people are noticing you? Do you feel like people are nurturing you? And do you feel like people need you? If we don't feel noticed, then that's not a good feeling. If we are coming and we are going and nobody notices us, there is nothing more dispiriting than to feel that you are in a space and you are not being noticed, nurtured. Do we feel like the people around us actually care about us enough to ask how we are doing and to care about the response that we give? And the third, which is no less important, do we feel like we're needed? Do people ask us if there's something that we can contribute in terms of our time or our resources? Sometimes people will be part of a community for a long time and they'll say, you know what, I have this skill or that skill, and nobody asks them to contribute for whatever reasons. And that can also be dispiriting. I want to say that in addition to being a rabbi, I am a human being. I have always been a human being. And I also like to be noticed, and I like to be nurtured, and I like to be needed. So if it's true of me, then I imagine it is true of all of us. Now, there are so many specific ways that we as a congregation can address this. I just want to point out two areas, and my God, there's so many. So one is that we have an organization called Yad B'Yad. And I suspect that many of us are not familiar with this organization in our synagogue. It's existed for decades. It means hands in hands. And that is an organization of people in our synagogue that volunteer to help out. If somebody needs a ride to a medical appointment, if somebody just had the birth of a child and they need help picking up groceries, if somebody is experiencing a loss and they need someone to set up their home when they're coming back from the service, and other things. There are opportunities for more people to volunteer for this organization. If you have the inclination, if you have the time, if you can make the time, if you would like this opportunity to do something that is truly, truly needed, then please speak to me about that. And I would love for more people to join this incredible group of Temple Israel members that provide for so many different needs. And the second thing that I want to mention this morning is that, of course, each and every day we have our minyan. And there is something very powerful about people joining together in prayer. Whether you are saying Kaddish for a loved one or supporting those who are, it is an opportunity each day for us to greet the day together, to give gratitude for the blessings that God has given us in our lives. And we have, frankly, been trying to strengthen the in-person portion of that minyan so that we have people who are present in the room, who are singing together, harmonizing together, wishing each other Yisher Koach in that space. And the room is big enough so that people can maintain whatever distance is comfortable for them. But I can tell you that in addition to the people who are joining us virtually, there is something incredibly special about being in that space. Now, it is very hard to climb a mountain in one leap. So what I am proposing is that we look at different days. I would like for us to start in the mornings by reinvigorating our in-person presence on Monday mornings and Thursday mornings, which are the mornings that we read from the Torah, so that we can take out the Torah, so that people can be called to the Torah, so that we can be in that space together. So again, if you have the inclination and if you have the time, what an incredible way to be able to serve the needs of the community. It is not a part of our regular practice as Jews to wash each other's feet. It did happen in the ancient temple. The Levi'im would get the Kohanim prepared and they would help to wash them, but it is not something we do now. The way that we show our concern is to look toward one another, to notice one another, to nurture one another, and to give one another an opportunity to contribute so that we can all truly feel needed. And I hope that, like the cherubs in the sanctuary, we will be Penenu El Achenu. We will have our faces looking at our brothers and our sisters, not to judge, but to welcome and to uplift. Shabbat Shalom.